The Argentine Military Cemetery, Spanish, Cementerio de Darwin, is a military cemetery on East Falkland that holds the remains of 237 Argentine combatants killed during the 1982 Falklands War. It is located west of the Darwin Settlement, close to the location of the Battle of Goose Green. History. In December 1982, the British government commissioned a firm of civilian undertakers to consolidate all of the temporary Argentine graves on the islands to a single location. Assisted by the armed forces, they identified each Argentine gravesite and brought the bodies to Port Darwin. At the time, this was the largest single Argentine gravesite, with the bodies of the 47 Argentine soldiers killed at the Battle of Goose Green and buried soon after the battle. Many of the bodies collected were without dog tags, so best efforts were made to identify each soldier from personal effects found on the body. Single items were not considered conclusive, but collections were. All were given a Christian burial with full military honors. Each grave is marked by a white wooden cross with the name of the soldier on it if known, but 123 of the crosses simply state Soldado Argentino Solo Conocido por Dios. A special case is a common grave into the cemetery used to bury the remains of 5 crewmen of a T-24 Learjet belonging to Phoenix Squadron who was shot down by a surface air missile from HMS Exeter over Bourbon Island on June 7 and founded in the crash site. This grave contains the remains of the following airmen: Comodoro Rodolfo de la Colina, Vice Comodoro Juan Jose Ramon Falconer, Major Marcelo Lodolfo, Sub-Off PR Francisco Tomás Luna and Sub-Off I Guido Antonio Mariza. After the conflict, the United Kingdom offered to send the bodies back to Argentina, but the Argentine government refused on the grounds that it viewed the islands as part of Argentina. Up until 2004, the cemetery was surrounded by a small white picket fence. The plot is now protected by a walled enclosure with a cenotaph including an image of Argentina's patron saint, the Virgin del Luyan. Surrounding the graves, the names of the 649 Argentine soldiers, sailors and airmen who lost their lives in the conflict are inscribed on glass plaques, with no indication of military rank or service, as requested by the families. Since the end of the conflict, the bodies of 3 more Argentine pilots have been interred. Capitan Jorge Osvaldo Garcia successfully ejected from his Argentine Skyhawk after being shot down by a Sea Dart surface-to-air missile on the 25th of May, 1982, but was not recovered from the water. His body was washed ashore in a dinghy at Golding Island in 1983. Lt. Gimenez, a Picara pilot, whose body was not found until 1986. His burial was attended by his family, the first Argentine relatives to visit the Falklands since the end of the war. Lt. George Casco Video, another Skyhawk pilot who crashed in bad weather on South Jason Island and was buried on the 7th of March 2009. In the case of Lt. Casco, his family requested that his remains be buried on the Falklands even after they were returned to Argentina in July 2008 for DNA testing in order to confirm his identity. On the 9th of November 2002, Prince Andrew, himself a Falklands War veteran, visited the Argentine cemetery and laid a wreath. During the visit, the prince said, "I lost friends and colleagues, and I know what it must be like for the great many Argentines who have shared the same experience." Since the UK-Argentine joint statement on the 14th of July 1999, Argentine families are responsible for the cemetery's upkeep, and in 2007, Sebastian Sicodo, an Argentine married to a Falkland Islander, was employed to do the job of cemetery maintenance. There is a replica of the cemetery at Berezetogue. 2012 vandalism. In July 2012, the glass casing protecting a figure of Argentina's patron saint, the Virgin of Luyan, at the head of the cemetery was smashed with what appeared to be an axe. Argentina presented a formal protest to the British government and informed the United Nations and the International Red Cross. Sebastian Sicodo, an Argentinian Falklander responsible for the cemetery's upkeep, said families were notified and that it was not clear when it occurred or who the perpetrators were. Police in the Falklands held an investigation and the glass casing was repaired. State of interments. In total 649 Argentines were killed during the 74 days of the conflict. The Argentine Military Cemetery holds 237 graves. Ejército Argentino 194. Armada de la República Argentina 341. Amara 34. Fuerza Aérea Argentina 55. Gendarmería Nacional Argentina 7. Prefectura Naval Argentina 2. Civilian sailors 16. Ara General Belgrano. The greatest loss of life in the war was in the sinking of the Argentine Navy cruiser Ara General Belgrano, with 321 members of crew and 2 civilians on board at the time, with most of these going down with her. Buried other places. 7 Argentines are interred at separate locations. Navy LT Carlos Benitez was killed on May 3 when he crashed with his Air Macchi MB-339 attempting to land at Port Stanley. He was buried at Stanley Cemetery, before being reinterred at Darwin Cemetery, after the war. Navy Captain Pedro Giacchino was killed during April 2 invasion in Port Stanley but buried in Mar del Plata at his daughter's request. During the Battle of Goose Green at South Georgia, Navy Corporal Patricio Guanca from Maragarico and 2 Argentine Marines conscripts Mario Armanasad and George Agula were killed and taken back to Argentina for burial. Navy Petty Officer Felix Artuso was mistakenly shot dead on April 26 in South Georgia while a prisoner of war and is buried at Goose Green Cemetery. Navy LTCMDR Carlos Maria Zuba Sarita was killed in Rio Grande, Tierra del Fuego on May 23 when his parachute did not fully open when he ejected from his Air Force Skyhawk after a tire burst on landing due to his bombs still being loaded. The plane stopped by itself and did not suffer any damage. Air Force Captain Fernando Casado was co-pilot of Canberra bomber B-108 shot down on June 13. His remains were found in 1986 and held in the Stanley Police Station until 2008 when DNA testing confirmed his identity. He was returned to Argentina and buried at Córdoba Province in the Malvinas Mausoleum of Villa Carlos Paz Cemetery. Mainland burials. Army helicopter UH-1 HBF crashed near Caleta Olivia in Patagonia on April 30 during a surveillance mission, killing the crew and the 7-man patrol on board. Air Force Ensign Mario Luis Valco crashed on May 24 with his Picara while undertaking a reconnaissance sortie of the Patagonian coast from Comodoro Rivadavia. Army conscript Sergio Oscar Gomez accident at Comodoro Rivadavia, date unknown. Remains not recovered. 61 Argentine combatants were lost with aircraft or ships and the remains were not recovered. Canberra bombers 2. Ara Alferez Sobral 8. Spy trawler Narwhal 1. Aerospatial Puma 3. Ara Isla de los Estados 22. C-130E Hercules 7. A-4B C Skyhawks 12. II Daggers 5.